In this lecture, you're going to learn how to render a list of items. So let's imagine we want to render a list of tags here. We start by adding a new property to our state object. Tags, we set it to an array of 3 strings, tag 1, tag 2, and tag 3. Now, here in our render method, we want to render these tags using UL and LI elements. Now, if you have worked with Angular, you have seen the ng-for directive. We use that to implement a loop in our templates. But in React, in JSX expressions, we don't have the concept of loops. Because JSX is really not a templating engine, it's just a simple syntax that will eventually get compiled to React elements. So how can we render a bunch of list items here? Well, in the last section, I talked about the map method of arrays. We can use the map method to map each element in this array into a React element. And with this, we can render a list of items. Let me show you. So here, we want to render something dynamically, so we start with curly braces. Next, we get this .state.tags. This is an array, so here we have a map method. Now, as the argument, we need to pass an arrow function. Tag goes to. Now we get each tag and map it to a list item. As simple as that. So basically what we're doing is we're getting a string and mapping it to a JSX expression, which gets compiled to a React element, which is essentially a plain JavaScript object. So even though the syntax here looks a little bit funny, what we're doing is taking a string and mapping it to a plain JavaScript object, right? Now, here in this JSX expression, we want to render the tag dynamically. So once again, we add curly braces and render the tag. As simple as that. So this is how we render a list of items in React. Let's save the changes back in the browser. So here are our tags, beautiful. However, if you look at the browser console, you should see this error. Each child in an array or iterator should have a unique key. The reason React is yelling at us here is because it needs to uniquely identify each item in this list. Because if the state of this React element in the virtual DOM changes, React needs to quickly figure out what element is changed and where in the DOM it should make changes to keep the DOM in sync with the virtual DOM. So, back in the code, whenever you're using the map method to render a list of items, here, for each item, you need to set the key attribute. So key, we set this to a dynamic value. Here, each tag is a string, and that string is unique. So we can use the same value for the key attribute. Now, in a real application, your tags might be objects, so they could have an ID property. Then you would use that here. Now just note that this key should only be unique in this list, that is the list of tags. It doesn't have to be unique in the entire application or on the entire page. You could have multiple lists, and each item in a given list should have a key that is unique only in that list. Okay? Now, save the changes. Back in the browser, you can see the warning is gone.